Problem 17 wants to find the x and y intercepts of a quadratic function. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is anytime you want to find an x or y intercept graphically, an x-intercept here is somewhere that it touches the x-axis, and therefore an x-intercept means your y value is 0. So the same idea here is if I want to find a y-intercept, that's where it touches the y-axis, so your x value is 0. So with that information, what I can do then is I can go through and take my equation, and I'm going to start off with the y-intercept. So that means my x value here and here are both 0. So I have y equals 2 times 0 squared plus 0 minus 10. These obviously become 0, so your y-intercept is negative 10. Also, when we look at the equation that we're dealing with here, it is written in standard form. Standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. And when any time you have a quadratic that's written in standard form, your c value here, which is negative 10, that is the y-intercept. And is for the fact that when I just showed you, these just become zeros. So then taking a look at the x-intercepts, there's a little bit more work to go along with that. So that means my y value is 0. So I have 0 equals 2x squared plus x minus 10. I have a few options here. You could try factoring. And if I factor it, I can use zero product property. I could complete the square. I would not advise completing the square on this one because of the fact that I have a 2 here and this is just a 1x. That would make it a little bit more messy. And I also could use the quadratic formula. So I'm actually going to do it here both ways of factoring and the quadratic formula. So if you want to take a look at either of those, fast forward or whatever you need to do. So first of all, I'm going to go through and factor it. So taking a look at my generic rectangle, if I have a 2x squared here and a negative 10, my diamond problem then is a negative 20x squared. Bottom of the diamond problem is x. That's going to give me a positive 5x, a negative 4x. So when I fill those in, from those right there, I have to have my 2x here, which makes that an x and a 5 and a negative 2. So that means what I then did is I have now rewritten this, and my factors are 0 equals x minus 2 and 2x plus 5. Zero product property, then I set this factor equal to 0, and I solve and I get x equals 2. I set that one equal to 0. I get 2x plus 5 equals 0. I get 2x equals a negative 5 and x equals a negative 5 over 2. So those are my two solutions for my x-intercepts. If I wanted to do this problem with the quadratic formula, so the quadratic formula is x equals, because we're solving for x, the opposite of b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac, everything divided by 2a. I substituted in my a values, which are my coefficients of 2 is a, 1 here for b, and my c value is negative 10. So I'm going to get the opposite of my b value is a negative 1 plus or minus 1 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 10, all divided by 2 times 2. So now I have a negative 1 plus or minus square root, and I'm going to simplify underneath the radical. I get 1, and I get a positive 80, because a negative 4 and a negative 10 here make a positive, divided by 4. That then gives me here a negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 81, which is a perfect square. So I have negative 1 plus or minus 9 over 4. And now I'm going to break that into two separate problems because of that plus and minus. So I have a negative 1 plus 9 is going to be 8 over 4. Or I have a negative 1 minus 9, which is a negative 10 over 4. And when I simplify both those, I get my answers of 2 or a negative 5 halves, which is the same solution we got before.